Namaskar. I'm Dr. Rama Paudel. Welcome to 16th episode of SCIPOD. SCIPOD is a talk show on Barakhari media that focuses mainly on scientific communities and policies related to science, environment, and agriculture. In this episode, we are pleased to have a distinguished professor, Dr. Vishnu Prasad Pandey, with extensive experiences in hydrology and water resources, climate change, and adaptation. Professor Vishnu Prasad Pandey is currently serving at Department of Civil Engineering and Director at Center for Applied Research and Development at Institute of Engineering, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. He has received several grants and awards for his work. Today, we will be discussing on research opportunities and challenges in water, climate, and resilience in Nepal. Welcome, Professor Pandey.
Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you so much for your valuable time to come here. When I see your publication and research work, you have a diverse experience in hydrology, climate change, water resources. If you want to define your work, how do you define it?
Thanks a lot for inviting me. It's my pleasure to share some of my thoughts. I don't think I have the diverse research portfolio. Whatever I have done are within the broader umbrella of the water security. If I have to be specific in keywords, I would define like water, climate, and resilience. Most of my research works, either published or unpublished, are maybe within that three keywords: water, climate change, and resilience.
Why do you think your research area is important, especially like if we talk about the water resources? It's one of the key resources in Nepal, and as you are a renowned researcher in this area, I can see your publication in groundwater, I can see your publication in many other areas. So like why this research area is important in Nepal, and what are the work that have been done so far?
See, water is key for most of the things, or almost everything, either for our survival or as input to agriculture, or maybe input to energy, or input to food security, or ecosystem. It's a key input to everyone. Without securing water, we cannot secure most of the fundamental aspects of our lives. I mean, not only our lives, but also ecosystem. Therefore, this water resource is important. And linking it to climate change is affecting most of the aspects of the water and the associated resources that I just talked about. Therefore, understanding how it affects, to what extent, whether they are manageable or not, to understand various dimensions like this, we need to have a research in water and an association with the climate. And regarding your next question, what I have done so far in that one, I have been working in the climate change, like projecting to what extent climate is changing in Nepal, in different geographic regions and so on, how extremes are changing over the time, both high extremes and low extremes in terms of the precipitation, in terms of temperature, in terms of discharge, and also like how they are impacting to sectors like agriculture sector, or maybe disasters, or water availability, or maybe energy production and so on. So I have been working in various aspects, but all are connected with water.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you are researching and projecting the impact of climate change and on other resources. So what tools that you utilize? For example, I see you utilizing some models, and how they are useful in the research.
See, for understanding future climate, as well as its impact across the sector, we use wide-ranging tools and techniques. Number one is we first understand how climate is projected to be in future. For that one, we take outputs from global climate models. There are varieties of model available. I think many, maybe more than 30, or even sometimes more than 100. Many climate institutions across the globe are producing their own model. But fundamental among them is the same. They try to understand or interlink the interaction between land, water, and atmosphere. So based on that, based on fundamental physics, they have developed many climate models. So we use output of the climate models as a primary data for projecting future climate, but they are of the very coarse resolution. When we apply to a local scale, to a specific sector, we need to downscale it further. The fundamental way in many institutions are downscaling to a regional climate models. Nowadays, we are using the CMIP6 family of the models, coupled model intercomparison project phase 6. Within that model, so far, I think only global climate models are available. They are coarse resolution. We use locally observed data of precipitation, temperature, primarily these two variables, to correct biases on that. And then sometime we use single GCM, sometime we use ensemble of the multiple GCMs, and use the kind of future climate series. Based on that, we project how the precipitation is projected in the future, average annual value, or maybe seasonal value, or extremes. Similarly, we do for a temperature. Therefore, for projecting, we use global climate model output as a fundamental data, and we do bias correction using, there are various techniques available.
Yeah, the modeling is kind of projection. It's not in the real exact data.
And what
right?
I want to add is when this is a projection, you rightly mentioned, based on the global climate models, they understand the interaction of the land, oceans, and the atmosphere. There are many uncertainties exist. Therefore, when we project the future climate, let's say 1 degree or 1.5 degree, they are always associated with uncertainty, which we should not miss out in our projected value or the projected reporting.
Many of the researchers, scientists, even students are interested in many areas, even in agriculture, like utilizing those modeling techniques. So as a practitioner, as a faculty on that area, what are the common errors on that kind of research and modeling? Like, for example, like what should we consider to utilize the modeling in our research?
See, I haven't finished my story. First is that we know how the project looks like based on what I explained earlier. Now, how to translate that into the climate change impact in a specific sector? You mentioned about agriculture, for example. In agriculture sector, when we have the projected future time series of precipitation and temperature, we feed those information with the agricultural yield model or the crop water estimation models. In many instances, the models like aqua crop, they can estimate crop water requirements, and also can estimate agricultural yields with the various types of inputs, right? So when we have those models set up, then we can use future climate as a scenario to assess how sensitive the outputs are with the future climate. Based on that, we can estimate the impacts on either future crop water requirement or impact on the yield. So now your second question comes, to what extent they are erroneous, right? The model is the kind of representation of the real world system. When we use the term representation, it already reflects that it's not 100% accurate. So modeling exercises are done to have a reasonable, accurate projections or estimates only. Therefore, there are always uncertainties, there are always kind of error margins there, but to make sure they are acceptable, they are within the acceptable limit, we use various kinds of statistical matrices. For example, in hydrology, we use NAS coefficients, R square value, percentage bias, and various other indicators to measure the error margin. There are some ranges. If those margins are within certain range, we consider the model performance as acceptable. That's how we estimate it.
In hydrology, we often talk about the data, right? And there are data available from different sources. What are the major sources of data available, and how we can utilize those data? And especially if the data are available, what are the problem? And for example, like if we have data from DHM, right? And in any researcher or scientist want to use it, what are its strength and the challenges on it?
See, data is a key for everything, every research, right? Science starts with the data. There are various sources of data. It depends on the question of at what scale are we talking about for the application, whether we are talking at the global scale application or regional or national or a local or farm scale application. Accordingly, the requirement of data varies. If you talk about the hydrology, we normally do hydrological modelings in a basin scale. Basin here, it stands for a hydrological boundary, right? So within that, if let's say reasonable basins, let's say more around 1,000 square kilometer for an example, that's good enough to do a modeling. First, we need meteorological inputs or climatic data as an inputs, like precipitation, temperature, and depending upon type of model, that may demand various other climatic variables too. In either case, basins, let's say 1,000 square kilometer, that's relatively large maybe, or large and small are always relative things. hydrological observation or meteorological observations are at a limited stations only, at some points only. So in many instances, if the basin we are considering consists of the large proportion as a mountainous region, they are mostly ungauged. So major challenge we face is the number one is data availability at a specific station and its quality. Regarding DSM data, several stations have either lack of data, not always of course, in some instances I am talking about, or maybe available data also have inconsistency. Therefore, but that's the best available data with us, right? So for a station data, after we purchase or access from the DSM, we must do quality testing before using it. Sometimes many students are, especially young students, what they try to do is when data is available, it's ready to use. That's a misperception exists in many students.
That's
That
why
should not be the case. When we have the data available, first we have to make sure it is of acceptable quality to use. If we purchase, for example, data from DSM, first we should check your data. There are many techniques for data consistency checking, quality checking, and if there are a lot of missing data or inconsistent data, we have to correct them. There are techniques available in hydrology. First we will start from that. That is the point data, right? Let's say in a basin there are 5 stations with the observed data, but that may not be enough to represent spatial heterogeneity within the basin, right? In that case, for ungauged areas, again, uncertainty exists. We have to use some approaches like, some averaging techniques. There are Thyssen polygon, isohydral methods, and many other techniques available. But that's the way we have to do it, but it consists of the uncertainty is there because we are trying to interpolate the data at a ungauged location based on data available at 2 locations. So, but this is the way we should move forward. There is no alternative, but there exist uncertainties and errors associated with that.
We do research, we create data, we utilize data, especially if we look at the service of people, we translate the data into policies, right? So how does this data could be translated in policies on the sector of water, hydrology and climate change?
That's a very important question indeed. Sometimes we end up with data and just data,
just data,
without
it
proper
like
use for a policy or practice. First thing is to finish with the data. Whatever data we have or they are available or accessible to us, they should be of adequate quality. Perhaps the initiative by the government level itself to translate the available data to acceptable quality and maybe accessing making the data accessible, the quality access data accessible should be the first priority, I believe. Otherwise, we bring the same set of data from DSM, for example. You are checking quality or correcting in your own way. I am doing on my own way. So there may be inconsistency in the output.
Dr.
That's
Pandey,
the first
like
thing,
what I think is in policy or as an extension worker or in a researcher, we really didn't have established the core value of data. If we have a quality data, and we will have a quality policy, quality in our policies and implementation. That's why to develop development projects, to develop research projects, we need to have a good quality data that starts from the researcher or scientist, right? And that's what I wanted to know, how does this data can be translated?
I'm coming to that. Before translating to policy, we cannot translate any data to policy. We should have a quality standard and the maybe properly filled or maybe reliable data set first. And that initiative should come right from the government agency. Maybe DSM should take one more step forward to translate their data to the maybe gap fill data and ready to use data. Of course, they claim that we have done it, but still many people find it difficulty. The second part is translate data into information. Data itself doesn't mean many things. So what information can we extract from data depends on what is the intended purpose. Even in policy is very broad term, whether we are talking about sectoral policy in hydropower or water resource or irrigations or whatever it is. So it depends on sector. Depending upon sector, we try to translate data into appropriate set of information. Then that information, if communicated properly to the policymaker, decision maker, in a language that is understandable to them, then only it is likely to be picked up to put into the policy. Same thing applies for practice too. Therefore, in many instances, what we believe that either as a student or a faculty member or as an independent researcher, we believe, we have the data, we have done research work, and policymakers are not using it. I think that should not be a valid statement. The valid statement should be whether we have consulted to policymakers or practitioners during the research process, whether we have made the importance of those data
and
information to them, and the vice versa.
Yeah.
Those things really matters in adoption of our research outputs to the policy and practice. In many instances, we researchers want to work in silo maybe, and sometimes we want to finish our work or as fast as possible without maybe much challenges by others. Maybe we want maybe be in the comfort zone, but that zone should be expanded, and we should be ready to face the challenges, criticize to ourselves, and we should consult more with the policymakers and practitioners to identify where is the gap, to consult regularly on what we are doing, and how to make value of our research works to them. Then only our research, like data, information, research output can be translated to practice and policy, I believe.
Yeah, coming to your personal journey again, you were one of the youngest full professor in Tribhuvan University. It's not an easy journey. You come from the lateral entry, and how is your experience on that, like working as a researcher and contributing to different policies? Definitely, you recently come from Singadarbar. While I was waiting. What is your personal experience on that aspect?
It took me when until I was like 40 years age, I only thought that okay, research publishing is good enough. I never could visualize how to translate that. When I work in the IME, International Water Management Institute, as water and climate expert, and then I could have opportunity to interact with many interdisciplinary professionals, and also the practitioners, and also the field level challenges, and it helped me to really visualize okay, what work I am doing makes sense only to me, because I am publishing, I have good citation, I am happy.
I know, like you have so many publications, but like let's have a reference on, for example, you are publishing a book and articles on groundwater. Are you contributing any policies for groundwater? Like every level of government might be working on that.
That's where I'm coming. It took me more than 40 years to understand that. Then I understand, okay, my research is contributing to myself. I have the good number of publications, good citation, that's enough. But where is it contributing? I try to scrutinize myself. Okay, these are the works where has been not somebody has cited, that's it. That's not enough. Then I realize myself. The last couple of years, and especially after coming to Institute of Engineering as a full professor, like you mentioned, perhaps my credibility increased compared to what I used to work before. And this has helped me to make a kind of contribution into policy, and my voices have been started to be heard. Then for the last couple of years, I have contributing one example recently completed with the Department of Forest and Soil Conservation. Together with them, I was thinking that line, and they also sometimes proposed me, are you interested in this work? I was so much happy. That was, we are talking sometimes basins for hydrological boundary, some are time watershed, sometimes catchments. So it came to my mind already that we should have standard terminology and criteria to define them. And department also was thinking in the same line, some good people in the departments. And then someday we discussed, and I said, well, Institute of Engineering would be happy to contribute. And we worked through a series of process, because there was no standard criteria in the global literatures too. We struggled a lot, and finally we came up with the series of the criteria to define different terminology and so on. We have submitted a report. They are in the process, and they also write to the different government agencies, and they have given the positive note, this is useful, and they are in the process of now approving this through the cabinet. I don't know how long it will take it, so that it becomes a standard policy document of the Nepal. If that is materialized, that is the most happy moment for me. This I contributed there. Other one I contributed is the Melamsi water supply projects. It has been hard hit. I was engaged in various stances with in the post Melamsi research activities. And one day Melamsi Water Supply Management Board came to Institute of Engineering. So see, we want to have vetting from the institute on our design recommendation by a consultant, because we want to engage institute for this government institutions. And sometimes some faculty members were even reluctant. Oh, it's a challenging job. Sometimes we may be, even if we give some recommendation, we may face some hardship in the future. But I said, we should not do that. This is our responsibility. We should trust on ourselves, and we should take these challenges. We took it, we reviewed the documents. That was about shifting the Melamji earthworks about a kilometer upstream from the current location. We reviewed, we did a field study, and we recommended. We also, our thoughts also aligned with the consultant thoughts, but we have some reservations too that we recommended very clearly to the government. Based on that, they decided to shift it in the upstream. I don't know the current stage of the process. So this is the another policy contribution I made in my life. There are several others. They are going in parallel. Hopefully in next few years I will have more contributions, which gives me a more sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, as a faculty member, also as a faculty member in Tribhuvan University, it's kind of pleasure for me to hear from you that when you join the university, your credibility of your work has been increased. You have been more heard by the government institution and other institutions. So like, how is your experience in Tribhuvan? As you mentioned, like as a researcher, like the core of the university are faculties, right, and their research and of course student, but the faculties need to be the key on universities. So like as a professor coming from lateral entry, how do you see the growth of universities in Nepal, and also definitely Tribhuvan University as a major university to have a like a globally ranked university, the improvement on that label? How could we contribute? Like if the faculties like me hearing, talking with you, how do you inspire us?
That's good questions and difficult too. You see, what I have felt, I know, right from the schooling, my father was a school teacher. He always give an environment that, you know, you have to study. The education is the key of everything. I got inspiration for further study and to contribute something right from my family. After that word, I always grew in an environment, either within the country, within family, or outside, with the people, or the set of people with a positive mindset. So I always see opportunities in every circumstances. Therefore, we faculty members have lots of opportunity to contribute. We means is a plural, like you, me, and everyone. When I entered the university also, you know, I left the high-paid job at international agency and I decided to move it. It was, of course, the hard decisions. Like none of the persons, except a couple of very few persons, suggested me to go there because of.
You know what? I have met the people who left the university job at the end of the retirement and went in international organization, and it's a reverse case for you. So I'm just asking you.
That makes sense. That's a sense of priority at the point of time. I take everything positively. So in my case, what I decided, not only this one, most of the instances I always resigned the high-paid job and had gone to the low-paid job. There are 3-4 instances in my life, and this is the latest in the series. But I decided to go because what I have been so far, whatever I have been able to contribute, that is because of Institute of Engineering, because I studied there 7 years. The first 3 years I in the diploma in civil engineering, and next 4 years in a bachelor in civil engineering. So I took this as an opportunity to contribute to my alma mater. And also, like,
that's really very important. You know, like we have, especially in technical field, Institute of Engineering, Medicine, Agriculture, Forestry, Food Science. Government has invested a lot in the university and other universities to create the human resources, and most of them are outside. And like contributing as an alma mater to the home institution is really matter globally, right? And it's really.
And when I came, I maybe inner interest, and also I told in interview that I studied 7 years. I have my kind of commitment for 7 years to the institute, so I will at least contribute to 7 years. That's in my heart. After that, I don't know, I will continue, or that depends on the situation, right? What I mean is, I decided to come back. Not only it's a maybe relatively less salary, but I also see the opportunities there. Of course, I came here, I tried to establish various government relationship in the research projects with many government institutions. We have signed an agreement in my initiative. Just today also we have confirmed with one of the agencies. Other agencies also we discussed today, they more or less agreed. And one more we signed, I think about 6-7 days back, and this has been a series. It means that there is always possibilities for contributing more with the research. From that we can earn too. So I'm having a decent life so far, and I don't have any complaints so far. It means that people in the universities are also supporting me a lot. So all the credit goes to them. Then it means that we faculty have a lot to do in the ranking of the university. There are a lot of opportunities that we can do it. But the question is why some people are getting more opportunities, some are not. That is also the case, right? So it depends on the kind of type of exposure people get in. What I see is in many instances a faculty member with a PhD graduate from within or outside the country and get enrolled through a standard process in the university, he or she is competent enough to do the high quality research. But some are we found as more productive compared to others. That's only the reason I could see is the kind of exposure they have got it. So in that case, the role of me as being a full professor and a person with relatively, I consider myself as a lucky person to get a more exposure. It's the responsibility of people like me to bring many other colleagues together to provide more exposure to them, and we being in the backside. So that's by that initiative, I think we contribute to university more by bringing helping to every faculties to get adequate exposure and providing opportunity to showcase their talents and then the potential. That's the responsibility of people like me. That's what I believe. If we go in that way, we can contribute a lot by research, by bringing research projects, publishing, and also making quality graduates from our institute. There's a lot of prospects for that.
Yeah, it's again, it's my pleasure to hear about you from one of your students who is serving in Institute of Agriculture and Animal Science, like at my institution, Tikaramji. But if we look at the general trends, you know, like as a refined professor, like your publication speaks, your quality speaks, everything. You are a internationally like a competent professor, but even the students working with professor like you, why it's so difficult to retain and make them work in Nepal, and what are the challenges?
See, what I disagree with the term retaining people. It's a natural process. If people see the opportunity, they will find themselves as a suitable space.
That's what I'm saying. Why we are not making like people like youngster are not like seeing the opportunities to contribute in Nepal.
That's I think one is in a very young age everyone struggled. You did, I did, everyone did it, right? It takes some time to get adequate exposure and adequate kind of adequate kind of output that we are looking for, right? For young graduates, this is a matter of passion, I believe. If they are passionate enough and they trust on themselves, there are opportunities. But having at least one exposure to international environment, to international university outside Nepal also really matters. If I had studied only in Nepal, maybe I would have limited exposure. I may not be at the position where I am now. Therefore, that's the two things. One is going out is not, I don't consider this negatively. That's required. Everyone should be it's a free border. Everyone is allowed to go anywhere. So after getting an international degree, then how they consider themselves, that really matters. One of my colleagues used to tell, is a very good and very competent colleague, that once some of his colleagues decided he had a very good job, and one of his colleagues told him that let's establish our own company. Why we are working for others? Because from our expertise someone else is earning. But some other colleagues did not agree with him, and what he said is, if we believe in ourselves, we should take that courage. And he left that job and started a company. I always salute him, and same applies here also. That means if you believe in yourself, there nothing will happen overnight. It takes time, and there are a lot of opportunities. But having international exposure equally matters. Therefore, going out is a natural process. We should not focus on retaining people, but we should focus on maybe showcasing the opportunities. Some people see that as opportunity, but same thing you see differently, I see differently. Some people may not see an opportunity.
Yeah, like if we look at like it's going to take like time. I'm an assistant professor. You were just coming into university as a full professor, but like I also spent my 7 years in USA for my master's and PhD degree. But looking at my friends and colleagues, like they don't see really the perspective to come Nepal and have the job that they really that matches to their skill and expertise. What is your?
No, I think there are two things I could see also. When I was in Japan, I had a job for 5 years. I wrote a project that was approved. 5 years, my job was secured, and one day I told my professor, I would like to go in Nepal. She was very surprised. Vishnu, many people want to stay even for 3 months. You have the guaranteed job for 5 years. Why do you want to go? I said it's my priority to go to Nepal. My daughter was 3 years old. I wanted her to go to Nepali school, and also I continue my career in Nepal. And I came here in that way. It means I saw the opportunity. And also when we see opportunity, we should not compare our circumstances with the outsiders. Of course, there are challenges, there are limitations. We have to maybe hurry for maybe gas or water or something, but this is our ground reality. We grew from this one. If we are accustomed with this, what we have and what are our limitations, and we are used to with this, I think this is the reality. We should accept the reality. But sometimes people, when like myself and everyone else goes outside, they see more comfortable life compared to here. Somebody will feel more comfortable to that, but it's fine. I don't have complaint to them, because there they see the prospect. I see the prospect here. Someone else may see the prospect here. That's the matter of how do we look the things.
When I looked at your research journey, you already have like more than 4,000 citations. You have much more, like 150 around publications. There's more content on it, and I see like you are now in public arena, like public speaking on your research journey, like the content that we need to translate in policy and other things. So like regarding that issues, as we even talk now, how especially like scientists or researcher work on isolation or in one settings, how is that important? And like especially in your sectors, like water, like glaciers are important, groundwater is important, and as you discuss in our informal talk, you are also contributing in Sagarmatha Sambad. So like how does that important to go on those forums, and how you are contributing on that aspect?
You see, when we started to work with more than two, there are always multiple ideas, right? So translating multiple ideas in a way that is convincing to all the parties involved is really important. That is, there are two aspects. One is skill, second is willingness. If these both things are there, it's not difficult to work with different people. I mean different set of people with a different background. I have experience of working with the people from social science. I have experience of working with the people from forestry, from environmental science, energy, and so on. Last 2-3 years we were engaged in a project related to developing a curriculum for water, energy, food ecosystem nexus. It was a long journey.
Can you just elaborate on that?
We developed 3 courses. One is for the academic course to integrate to one of the existing courses in Institute of Engineering. Second, professional course, third is sensitization course. And later on there was a great interest from Institute of Forestry, and they developed as a single 3-credit course on nexus to offer as a common course in all 6 master programs at Institute of Forestry. So this nexus is already institutionalized in Institute of Forestry and Institute of Engineering. Through this process, in this process,
and that also align with the Institute of Agriculture, doesn't it? Your work.
We, Agriculture and Forestry University, we expert from that also involved in this process. Expert from forestry, expert from energy, expert from governance. We work with different set of people. That for me personally, it was a great learning opportunity to understand diverse view. But as a person who led those process, I was happy enough to develop, to steer the process in a way that is convincing to all the stakeholders. So it means that it's as I mentioned earlier, it's a matter of willingness and skill. When these two merge, we can do it. And it is really, really important to work with the people beyond your core area of comfort or core area of expertise. That helps you grow a lot and also make impact in a way that creates synergetic effects with all the sectors and all the actors. Just yesterday I gave a talk about this at the UNU Floris, and there was an online webinar to their students. Just yesterday evening I gave a talk in this one. It's how we institutionalize the nexus in the academic curricula in Nepal. That experience I shared yesterday. And regarding the second part, how important it is to work with the people beyond your core area of expertise, I answered that. Second is how important to be in different forums as a faculty member, not only teaching, not only doing research, also bringing research projects, also publishing, and also disseminating it is quite important, because it speaks many aspects. One is what you are doing will not be a business of yourself only. It will be a business of entire society. Second thing is how convincing you are, that can be demonstrated only through the how you communicate in the different and diverse flora like this. You talk about Sagarmatha Samvad too, right?
Yeah.
I recently came from Singapore. There was a discussion among the moderators to moderate different sessions within Sagarmatha Samvad. I myself is assigned to moderate a session on mountain risks assessment. So when we talk about climate change, you also asked me a question about how it impacts agriculture. But and agriculture is a mainstay of our national economy. So and Nepal is promoting an agenda of mountain, right? Because climate change is impacting mountain a lot. So I believe we should encapsulate all the sectors, either maybe hydropower or maybe agriculture or food security or whatever it is, to the mountain agenda. If you align that, the likelihood of getting global attention and likelihood of having more collaborative efforts together with the global community is higher. So I think the Sagarmatha Samvad and the events like this is meant to showcase those priorities. But and also in that meeting, one of the colleagues told it, and I really like the idea is we should not showcase Nepal as a
vulnerable
with the narrative of victimized
Yeah,
country,
that's what
right? We should narrate in a way that we are doing a lot. We have developed a leadership. We have experience. We can do that. We need a global support to do more. Not only in Nepal,
and
even beyond
we can
Nepal.
provide a global model for the mountain
Exactly.
ecosystem, right?
And we can contribute to beyond Nepal. That narrative should be put forward in Sagarmatha Samvad.
That's exactly what I
really
was
like
thinking,
the idea
yeah.
of the colleague, and it worth mentioning in this talk right in the before you are recording before the Sagarmatha Samvad.
That's what I was also thinking, like when we are having those international forum like that, like not only we are vulnerable, like my mountain are vulnerable, but we have this unique topography, unique geography, unique ecosystem that this model can be marketed globally, that like where we are doing here, and we have that global expertise as well, like people like you and those people working those people who are not in Nepal now, like who are working globally also, how can they actually collaborate to work in Nepal?
You see, sometimes I talk in many instances, formally or informally, that even the people living outside can contribute to more than the people living inside Nepal.
How's that?
Yeah, you see, in terms of access to resources, if we try to link with the research challenges, you also talked earlier about that one. We have challenges of the data. Local data we can access from, especially hydromet data from Department of Hydrology, Meteorology. But if we try to work in a little larger scale, large river basin scale like Kosi or Kardali, or at a national scale, a lot of global data sets are available. Satellite products are available. Many of them are not accessible to us. If we have partnership with the universities where our colleagues are working, that partnership can help us to access those data. That's the way we can materialize. In terms of access to technologies, recent tools, they have more access compared to us. Through the partnership, we can have access to those things, even laboratory facilities and others. And their exposure to the diverse environment in maybe in the different continents. And those experience, even through the dialogue or through maybe joint writing or joint project development, by that process we can bring to here, and we can foresee what are the potential risks in the future. All these things can be brought together for the benefit of the Nepal. I see a lot of prospects on that.
Exactly, like those of us like who are working in Nepal and those who are not in here, like the spirit of giving back to the country, if it's there, then there's so many opportunities to contribute and even showcase that we have the strength, we have the uniqueness, and we have the opportunities. So I really wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Like, would you like to share anything else?
Thank you. And I think finally what I would like to say is there are many instances we see very, very negative narratives in the society. Nothing can be done, oh, this is a difficulty, that is a difficulty, and so on. What I would like to say to the youngster is there are a lot of opportunities. Myself have seen an opportunity, therefore you also, I think many of you have seen it. But sometimes how to access that opportunity is a matter of the skill, matter of the access to resources and access to many other things. So that is feasible. But what we need is we need to have a will, we need to have passion. With that, I think we can do many things. There are a lot of opportunities. We need to have exposure to the global challenges, global practices, and so on. But even after that, there are many things can be done in Nepal. Nepal is really looking for good experts.
Exactly.
When we try to find good human resources, they are really limited in every sectors. So if we try to demonstrate ourselves as a person who with the competent capacity and can really demonstrate and deliver that. And if we position ourselves, there are lots of opportunities. We can do a lot living in Nepal. So I would like to end in this positive note. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your valuable time, sir. It was my honor to have you in SCIPOD.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. I really appreciate it.